Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, That's Life, I Swear. I'm your host, Rick Barron. The dismantling of USAID was not just cruel. You see, it was spectacularly jaw-dropping stupid. And now Ebola is proving just that point. Elon Musk called it feeding USAID into the wood chipper, and he said it with the satisfied grin of a man who had finally cleaned out the garage. What he had actually cleaned out, though, it turns out, was the fire department. Welcome to That's Life, I Swear. This podcast is about life's happenings in this world that conjure up such words as intriguing, frightening, life-changing, inspiring, and more. I'm Rick Barron, your host. That said, here's the rest of this story. Before I get started here, allow me to provide you some context. In May of 2026, an epidemic of Ebola was reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It is the 17th Ebola outbreak in DRC and began only 5 months after the end of the previous outbreak. Okay, that's it. Now picture, if you will, a man in a hard hat and a cape standing before a perfectly functioning smoke detector, hacksaw in hand, grinning at the crowd and gathering below his ladder. This thing, he announces, is costing us money every year, and it has never once detected a fire in my presence. Clearly, it doesn't work. It does nothing. The crowd cheers, the hacksaw sings, and the detector falls to the ground. Well, 6 months later, the building is on fire. This is stripped of all euphemism and diplomatic courtesy. What happened when Elon Musk announced, with the breezy satisfaction of a man discovering he accidentally won something, that he had spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. He said this as though he recognized a cluttered garage, as though decades of painstaking constructed global health infrastructure were the equivalent of old paint cans and broken down chairs. Now, of course, Donald Trump nodded along, as he tends to do, when someone tells him something that confirms a suspicion he already enjoyed having. American humanitarian aid, they both agreed, was essentially a vanity project, woke charity theater, money wasted on people who didn't vote. Well, global health is unpredictable, and it's not certain that the U.S. Agency for International Development would have stopped Ebola this time. But in 3 ways, Trump's assault on global health has left us in a worse position to combat Ebola. Let's take the first one. Taking down USAID. There is a particular species of confidence that blooms in those who have never had to understand a thing in order to destroy it. Musk had built rockets and electric cars. Trump had built casinos and then unbuilt several of them, financially speaking. Now, neither man had spent much time in the Dominican Republic of the Congo, watching aid workers track unexplained fevers through remote villages, building the kind of early warning networks that look from the outside like nothing at all, right up until the moment they're gone and something ancient comes roaring through the gap they left behind. That something is now here. Ebola is back, not as a theoretical risk, not as a footnote in a preparedness document, but as an active, spreading, third worst on record outbreak. And the wood chipper, it turns out, ate some rather important things. Ebola is a terrifying disease, initially producing a fever, muscle ache and headaches, and then leading to vomiting, diarrhea, and often bleeding and death. It is transmitted by body fluids, but in a broader sense, it is transmitted by love. When people tend to an ailing loved one or prepare a body for burial, it is easy to be infected by blood, vomit, or diarrhea. So let's pause on the sheer conceptual comedy of what happened with USAID's Congo operations. The United States had over many years built up a humanitarian infrastructure in the DRC so comprehensive that it financed roughly 70% of all humanitarian work in the country, according to Physicians for Human Rights. 70%. America was not a minor player in Congo's stability and health. America was functionally the floor. Then over a weekend, the floor was removed. Aid workers were sent home. Programs that had taken years to build were shrouded with the administrative grace of someone canceling a streaming subscription. I mean, there was no transition, no handover, no plan. Jeremy Konanik, who ran USAID's response to the 2014 outbreak, has noted that the agency used to maintain a substantial presence in precisely the region where this new outbreak began. If those teams had still been there, he has said plainly, this outbreak would not have gone undetected for as long as it did. Health workers on the ground would have flagged the clusters of unexplained hermeographic fever. The alerts would have gone up the chain. The White House would have been notified. Time, the most precious resource in any epidemic response, would not have been squandered. Instead, by the time the world began responding to this outbreak, there were somewhere between 400 and 500 cases. When the world began responding to the 2014 epidemic, there were 40 to 50. Now, Dr. Tom Frieden, who directed the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention during the earlier crisis, put it with a kind of blunt clarity that only people who have actually watched epidemics work tend to possess. With Ebola, time is lives. Get to an outbreak in days, and you can stop it in weeks. Get there in weeks, and it goes on for months. Get there in months, and it can go on for years. This outbreak had what Frieden called a running head start. The metaphorical smoke detector had been removed, and the fire had been burning quietly for some time before anyone noticed the smell. Now let's look at the second. Hostility aimed at the WHO. Okay, it was an imperfect institution that, like seatbelts, works better when you use it. If the USAID destruction was the first act of this farce, the administration's handling of the World Health Organization was the second. While Trump withdrew the United States from the WHO, an organization with obvious flaws, as most large bureaucracies have obvious flaws, and also with the genuine, irreplaceable function of serving as the world's shared early warning system for exactly this kind of outbreak. Now, the result of this posturing was that the United States learned about the current Ebola outbreak 9 days after the WHO did. 9 days. In Ebola terms, that is an eternity. That is the difference between containment and catastrophe. For all its weaknesses, the WHO is essential, Dr. Frieden had said. The stronger the WHO is, the safer we are. This is not a complicated point. It is the kind of thing that becomes obvious the moment you consider the alternative, which is, apparently, the situation we are now in. Third, the binder no one wanted to open. The third act of this absurd drama involves a binder, or more accurately, several hundred pages of infectious disease preparedness planning that the Biden administration assembled especially for the incoming Trump team. Now, these documents detailed exactly how to handle an outbreak like the one now spreading through the DRC. A roadmap, if you will, essentially for the scenario currently unfolding. And what does Trump do? Well, his administration reportedly ignored it. This is the kind of detail that would seem too on the nose if you encountered it in a comic novel. The previous occupants of the building left a laminated guide titled, "What to Do When the Smoke Detector We Removed Would Have Gone Off." The new occupants used it as a coaster. Meanwhile, positions dedicated to disease preparedness sat vacant. The administration is also reportedly eyeing cuts to what is called PEPFAR, the program that has saved more than 26 million lives from HIV/AIDS, on the grounds that one can only assume 26 million lives is not the kind of number that moves them. 8 former CDC directors recently co-authored a warning that these cuts would degrade the surveillance networks that catch diseases like Ebola early. 8 former directors. The kind of bipartisan expert consensus that used to mean something. Now here is where the absurd comedy gives way to something altogether harder to sit with. The people who actually deal with Ebola, the doctors, nurses, burial teams, and community health workers in places like the Congo, are not operating with the luxury of ideological certainty. They are working according to reports from the front lines without adequate protective equipment. They are tending to patients who are hemorrhaging managing bodies that are highly infectious, doing the work that the dismantled infrastructure was supposed to do, and doing it anyway with whatever they have. Now, this is a true cost of treating global health as a line item to be slashed in the Doge spreadsheet. It is not abstract. It is a physician with a machete instead of a stethoscope, and it is a spreading outbreak that should have been caught months ago. One recent study found that in areas of Africa that received significant U.S. assistance, the abrupt shutdown of USAID caused roughly a 10% increase in violence, riots, combat deaths, and destabilization. A Boston University researcher has estimated that the aid cuts have already cost more than 750,000 lives worldwide. You heard me right, 750,000 lives. But let's build that palace for Trump, shall we? Now, there is a version of this story where the men responsible look back at what they have done and reckon with its honesty. In that version, Musk acknowledges that the wood chipper metaphor was in retrospect poorly chosen. Trump concedes that some of what USAID did was not in fact woke nonsense. We are not as yet living in that version of the story, and I doubt it's ever going to come. What we do have is an Ebola outbreak that is already the third worst ever recorded, a gutted early warning system, a broken relationship with the world's primary public health coordinator, and the quiet, unacknowledged lesson that the things that look like waste, the aid workers in the field, the health monitors, the planners with their binders, are sometimes the only things standing between the world and something that bleeds. The smoke detector, as it turns out, was not a decoration. So what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? Well, this story teaches us a few things. Let me give you some of them. Expertise is invisible until it's gone. The most important systems, disease surveillance, early warning networks, on-the-ground aid presence, looks like nothing when they are working. They produce an absence of catastrophe, where ideologies mistake for proof that they're unnecessary. You don't see the outbreak that didn't happen. USAID's value was precisely its invisibility in normal times. Now, speed is everything with exponential threats. Now, Dr. Friedman's statement said it very well. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and months become years. Epidemics don't pause when institutions are rebuilt. The cost of dismantling a response system isn't paid immediately. It's paid at the worst possible moment with compound interest. Ideology is a poor substitute for understanding. Musk and Trump didn't cut USAID because they analyzed it and found it wanting. They cut it because it felt like the kind of thing that should be cut. Foreign, bureaucratic, associated with people they disliked. That's a category error with lethal consequences. Contempt is not analysis, people. And finally, the broadest takeaway is this. Governing requires understanding what you're touching before you dismantle it. The wood chipper metaphor Musk used so cheerfully is apt, but wood chippers don't discriminate. They take the rotten wood and the load-bearing beams with equal enthusiasm. The job of leadership is knowing which is which. That work wasn't done, and now people are dying because of it. Well, there you go, my friends. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which can be found on Apple Podcasts, for show notes and the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for the privilege of you listening and your interest. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And we'll see you soon.